Welcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to introduce you to Sparta. Can everybody see Sparta there? Okay. Sparta, unfortunately, modern Sparta is a dump. And I hate saying that, but look at this setting. The setting is absolutely gorgeous. So I am Reed's ancient historian. What my specialty is ancient Sparta. So I'm a Greek historian. I teach Greek and Latin, all levels. But if you had to pin me down, I love Greek. Greek is my great joy. I have published on, I would say at this point in my career, almost every aspect of Spartan history: kings, women, literacy, warfare, you name it. And what I'm going to be talking to you about today, I'm going to toggle back and forth between a handout and showing you some images, is about Spartan women. And the reason why I thought this would make sense is because in the fall this year, I'm going to be teaching a course on women in the ancient world. It's one of my specialties. I'm probably the world's leading specialist on Spartan women at this point. And again, it's a tiny pond. But anyway, what I'd love to do is sort of introduce you to Spartan women and give you an idea about what it means to do ancient history. So any of you who work on modern history, you have lots of sources at your disposal, do you not? Right? You have newspapers, you have TV, you have all kinds of exciting things at your disposal, right? But for the ancient world, we run into some very serious problems. So Sparta is a lot of people are very, very interested in Sparta, and a lot of people are really interested in Spartan women because when I say myths, there are these ideas about Spartan women, and I want to show you some of the sources that we have that'll give you an idea that even among the ancients, right, Sparta and their women were a source of endless fascination. So the first quote is from this wonderful play from 411 BCE, written by Aristophanes, where these women stage a sex strike. And one of the characters is this ginormous female named Lampito. And when I saw this performed in Greek, if you can imagine, all these plays were performed by men dressed as women. So in this play, when I saw this set in Athens, they had like this football player who was padded with giant breasts and other paraphernalia, wearing like diaphanous clothing. And this is the Spartan Lampito. When she comes on, this other female, Lysistrata, who's the leader of the sex strike, she wants the Athenians to stop fighting war. So they're going to have a sex strike. She says, "Oh, my dear Lampito, how dazzling is your beauty. What rosy cheeks, what firmness of physique. You could choke a bull." And Lampito has this very weird accent. Okay, it almost makes her sound like a hick if you read the Greek. Is true, I think, by twain gods. Much exercise. And the Greek there, you'll notice I put some Greek in, gymnadomai. So, by the way, gymnasium. How many of you have ever been inside a gymnasium? Can you raise your hands? Come on. How many of you have been in a gymnasium? Okay, what are you supposed to wear when you're in a gymnasium? Any of you know? I mean, technically, what should you be wearing when you're in a gymnasium? Nothing. It comes from the Greek word gymnos, right? So she says, much exercise, much leaping to harden buttocks. And then this other woman goes, what a beautiful pair of boobs you have. And the Greek for boobs is this is almost untranslatable. It's whatever is on her chest are not normal. There's something very strange about them, okay? So one of the myths about Spartan women is that they're very unusual in the ancient world because they're naked all the time and they're off running around exercising, okay? Another kind of myth we have is that Spartan women are simply sexually out of control. So I'm going to give you another piece of information here. And this is from a guy named Euripides. And Euripides is a tragedian from Athens, and he's writing this plays from around 425 BCE, pretty close in time. And in this play, we meet the dysfunctional royal family of Sparta. And have you ever heard of someone named Helen? She wasn't a very good wife. You know who I'm talking about? We say Helen of Troy. She's actually Helen of Sparta. And her cuckolded husband, Menelaus, and their deeply dysfunctional daughter. Now, in this play, we have another figure who is screaming at Menelaus, and he says, "You call yourself a man, you coward of cowards bred. You who lost your wife to a Phrygian." having left your house and hearth unlocked and unattended, as if you had a modest wife at home instead of the most wanton of women. Even if she wanted, no Spartan girl could be modest. They leave their homes empty and with their thighs bared and robes ungirt. I mean, come on, bare thighs, people. I know nothing shocks you. This is pretty shocking, right? They share the race courses and the wrestling grounds with the young men. Okay, so here we're hearing about women not only exercising it sexually, they're just simply out of control. And then we have another source. We also have sources that tell us that not only are Spartan women naked all the time and exercising and sexually out of control, but that Spartan women rule their men. And the wonderful term for this, if you want to ever, at a dinner party, want to try out a fabulous term, the term is gynecocracy. Like, have you ever heard the term gynecology? Okay, gynaikos is Greek for woman. So gynecocracy literally means the rule of the female. And this is coming from Aristotle. I'm sure you've all heard of Aristotle, very famous 4th century theorist, philosopher. In his work on the politics, he lambasts Spartan women in one section. And he talks about all the problems about Spartan women. I actually published in a whole piece on just this passage alone in one piece from Plato recently. And he says here, he talks about the problems created by women. And what's really the most important is when we get down to this last line, this is why this state of affairs prevailed among the Spartans. And in the days of their supremacy, a great deal was managed by women. And what is the difference between women ruling and rulers ruled by women? The result is the same. Okay, so a lot of people in the ancient world have these ideas about Spartan women. And a lot of modern scholars just completely bought into them. You know, you could read scholars saying, oh, Spartan women are they're empowered and they're liberated and they're highly unusual in the ancient world. And I'm a scholar who, among other scholars over the last 30 years, have worked to sort of destabilize and question what we think we know about Sparta. And I've written quite a lot on, as I told you, lots of aspects of Sparta. Also on women. One of the problems about our sources of information is that we have next to no sources from Sparta. Almost all of our sources on ancient Sparta comes from Sparta's great enemy. Any of you know who Sparta's great enemy was during the 5th century? Grace?
It was Athens, right?
Athens, those evil Athenians, okay?
Thanks to video games for teaching me that.
It's a great way to learn. And most of our sources are written by whom? Men, okay? But not only men, so first of all, they're not even representing what with the female experience. These are 100% of the time non-Spartan men. They're also often men writing, they're not only geographically far from Sparta, they're also often chronologically far from Sparta. We have people writing about Sparta centuries later, very much dependent on earlier Athenian sources. So you understand why these ideas about Sparta get perpetuated, because during the 5th century, Athens and Sparta were in competition over control over the Greek world. And Athens, what I show in my work is that Athens sort of turned Sparta into something other, alien, almost non-Greek, as a way of saying we deserve to be the rulers, not those weird Spartans with their strange, out of control, unnatural gender relationships. Athens was a highly literate society. And what do I mean by literate? Where you have the literacy in Athens is higher than it is elsewhere in the Greek world for one very particular reason, okay, that literacy is promoted by the advent of democracy. So Sparta is really not that unusual. We just don't have much in the way of literary sources. And then archaeologically, we have never yet found the agora. You guys know what an agora, if I call you an agoraphobe, right? Fear of the agora. The agora is the sort of central political and social space in any Greek polis, any Greek city-state. It's not been excavated. And I whenever I go there, I always have this fantasies of like walking into someone's backyard and like digging. So Sparta is not actually that unusual. The place that's really anomalous is Athens in terms of how much we know. We also don't have a lot of what we call inscriptions. An inscription, so let's say that you went in your backyard and you took a rock and you chisel your name into it. That's an inscription. Or if I have a piece of pottery and I write my name on it, that's an inscription. So this is a very dear friend of mine from years ago. And this was this wonderful plinth that the Spartans put up at the time of the Olympics in Greece to recount all of their ancient Olympic victors. And you're going to see, everyone see down where he's pointing, you see the name, it's in Greek, Kuniska. Kuniska, which means little bitch, I kid you not, like little female hunting dog, because that's what her name means, was wealthy enough in 4th century Sparta to own horses with which he won 2 4-horse chariot races at the Olympics. We think in pretty much in the middle of the century, okay? And this is what we have left of, she made 2 major dedications to celebrate, okay, to celebrate her victories. So if you may say, oh, Ellen, what is that? It just looks like what is that? It's actually the stone part of a dedication. And we actually have part of the remaining epigram. You can actually see her name, Kuniska. Can you all see? Kappa Upsilon Kuniska. Now that then you may say, well, why does that matter? Why do I care about having, and I'm going to go back on here, why do I care about having Kuniska? My father and brothers are kings of Sparta. I, Kuniska, victorious with a chariot of swift-footed horses, set up the statue. And I declare myself the only woman in all Hellas to have taken this crown. It's a pretty remarkable statement. But imagine if we didn't have that. This is one of the only pieces of information that we have on this one female member of one of Sparta had 2 royal households. We have a series of these freestanding statues from about 570 to 470 BCE of girls either running. This one I don't think is running, because I think if she were running and looking backwards, it would not turn out well for her. So we think she's probably dancing. And you're going to see these statues are all over the world. These are the handles for either dishes where we have ritual dishes called paterae, or mirrors. Remember, the ancient world, they don't have glass. A mirror is a piece of bronze that has been shined up enough that you actually can see something in it. You may say, well, why do these matter? Okay, why do these matter? Because remember the pieces of information that I gave you that talked about, oh, Spartan girls do what? They race with their thighs bared, and they're licentious, and they're out there exercising because simply they're what? Immodest and sexually crazed. Okay, when you study these objects, like this girl's holding symbols in her hand, can you see them? A lot of these figures hold objects, okay, or they're surrounded by animals, which tell us that these exercises that these girls were engaging in had nothing to do with being sexually licentious or liberated. So the Spartans practiced something that you might find this term disturbing, eugenics, the idea being that a healthy mother will have an easier time having babies. We also know that Spartan women married later than their counterparts, probably around age 18. Why? Their chances of dying in childbirth were lower. So the Spartans were very concerned about creating strong mothers of strong babies. Are you with me? Okay. It has nothing to do with wanting them to be liberated. That's just not the information that we have.